Okay, hi, and welcome to the video on introducing sketching for our sketching workshop. So what I want to do is give you an idea of what I mean when I talk about sketching, maybe dispel some of the kind of fear and myth about going into the workshop. It's not about creating works of art, it's about having a tool that you can use to convey your ideas, and that conveying of the ideas is one of the most powerful things you can have in the user experience module and in life, I would argue. So sketching transcends the boundaries of whatever it is you want to do. Sketching is not about being a UX tool. It's not about being an HCI tool. It's not about being art. Sketching is about that conveying of information between people who have different ideas. So why do we use it? Why are we even bothering to look at it? So sketching is an immediate thing, right? You can immediately share the idea in your head, put it on a bit of paper and convey that to someone else. You can make sure you're both on the same page. Literally, you can make sure that you've both got the same idea or you both have a similar understanding of the same idea. Other people can add to that. So it's not putting something on paper isn't a final thing. You can use it for a visual memory. So if you're a kind of more of a visual learner, you can start to use sketching to help with that. If you are sharing your idea with something, like you're putting it in a publication, sometimes having a picture, like we've all seen charts, bar charts, line charts, all sorts of things that save space. So if you're trying to convey something about an interface, for example, just drawing that out will save you loads of words and therefore save you space. And it's a universal language. I have drawn sketches to help me communicate with people who just don't speak. I don't speak their language, they don't speak mine, but together with sketches we can really find this common ground. So it's an extremely valuable thing to start doing if you don't already. And one of the best examples of sketching, I think, that I've ever seen is some work by Thomas Edison. So Thomas Edison said, I've not failed, I've just found 100,000 ways that won't work. And he did. So there's Rutgers University in the States has a project that they are basically creating the biggest archive or curated archive of Thomas Edison history. So they have lots of his notebooks, lots of his ideas, lots of kind of, meeting minutes and all sorts of original prototypes, a lot. And they've basically pulled it all out of the archives and they've started to turn it into something. So these are some of the examples of early light bulb sketches that he drew. And I mean, this is a new idea that he's using the sketches to convey. And of course, this is a more final version that's in the US Library of Congress. So you can see that progression from initial idea to final product and the value that those sketches must have had, because obviously, Thomas Edison, he's the man behind it. He's the person who gets the credit. He's the person who maybe came up with the idea, but there are lots and lots of people who worked with him. So these are some examples of the light bulb. And you can see that there's been some kind of evolution between these sketches, because the one on the left has a coil, the one on the right doesn't. That's just a kind of circular shape. So you can see that he's annotated them. So the writing is very hard to read, obviously, but that annotation, he's not just relying on the sketches. The sketches are a way to convey what he wants to say, but that annotation is what gives it the detail. So that's a crucial thing to remember, that annotation is not something to be shied away from. So Edison and his staff created over 2,500 notebooks. And each of those notebooks has got 200 to 300 pages. And a lot of that means nothing to anyone other than Thomas Edison and his staff. But some of them are real gems of information. To bring it up to a more modern day, some of the projects that I relate to are through data. And this particular project, Dear Data, is about two people who live on opposite sides of the globe and they are sharing information about their life with someone else through the medium of sketching data points. So essentially coming up with, let's talk about how many red cars I see in a day, let's talk about how many calories I ate in a day. And so each week they would send postcards back and forth across the Atlantic to share their life with someone else through sketching. So what we'll do is I'll stop talking and I'll play a little video that explains more about the project here.
I'm Georgia. I am Italian, but I live in New York.
I'm Stephanie. I was born in Denver, Colorado, but I've lived in London for the past 13 years.
We had only met each other in person twice when in September 2014 we decided to collaborate on a year-long project to get to know each other through our data.
Dear Data was conceived as a new type of correspondence through creating and sending hand-drawn data postcards across the ocean to each other. We collected personal data around a shared topic in order to investigate and reveal aspects of ourselves and our days to share with the other person.
By counting and reducing in a way to data even the most shameful personal revelations, they somehow felt not so shameful anymore. They are data.
As we gathered our weekly data, the process was much more labor-intensive than just deriving standard metrics through using technological devices.
The very first week of Dear Data, we chose a pretty cold and impersonal topic. How many times do we check the time in a week? We discover something about the other person's days through the pretext of my data collection. Why was I checking the time? What was I doing? Was I bored? Was I hungry? Was I late?
I finally realized during our week of gathering data on the urban wildlife we saw around us. Each week isn't a scientific, comprehensive survey of every single animal I passed by or every emotion I felt and so on, but a record of Georgia and I noticing and us marking our awareness. Some weeks we notice more and some weeks we notice less, and that's an indication of our personalities and our lives as well.
Drawing with data, when the drawing is the final output, can be painful. It's laborious, demanding, it's frustrating. My week 24 is a perfect example. A week of doors, to give the other person the idea of the pace of our days through the internal and external environments we entered in.
Often during the project, the act of counting became something that was emotionally charged. In week 29, Georgia and I ended up tracking moments when our partners inspired love or inspired annoyance. This card became like a love letter to my husband. I like how instead of giving someone flowers, now you can give a data set. Once the visualization was complete each week, we would drop the postcard in our postbox and wait with our fingers crossed.
We learn to pay attention, to live in the present much more, to be more aware of our surroundings and of our behaviors with new lenses.
Finally, we both realized that data is the beginning of the story, not the end, and should be seen as a starting point for questioning and understanding the world around us, instead of seeing it as the definitive answer to all of our questions.
So hopefully that's given you a sense of what the Dear Data project is about. The book is awesome. You get the book many days just lost in the sketches that were created for that. So what does this mean for you, right? You're probably not going out tomorrow to start sharing your life with someone on the other side of the Atlantic, but the fact that you can think of different ways to use sketching is where we want to be at. So the sketches don't have to be pretty, beautiful, or understandable by others, so that's the annotation stuff. But you've got to be able to explain them and these sketches and ideas when anyone asks about them. So there's something that's supplementary, that's a tool to convey the information. And the other key thing I think that you should remember is that the depth of the sketch reflects the depth of our thinking. So if you have a very complex idea, the sketches will naturally become more complex. The first one is not going to be complex. The first one's going to be terrible. You're going to want to rip it up. You're going to never want to look at it again. But over time, they will start to become more complicated and more reflective of the depth and the complexity of your idea. So the mantra I think that we want to take away from this is that you're conveying ideas, you're not conveying art. If you want to convey art, go and join an art school. We're just using simple tools to get our ideas across. You only need to draw what you need. Don't think that you have to create something hugely complex and beautiful. If all you need is some boxes and some arrows, that's all you need. And those simple shapes of boxes, arrows, circles are actually the most expressive and they're the most powerful in order to convey your idea. So no skills are required, just relax. Do not worry about what you need to do. All you need is a pen and a bit of paper, and we will go from there.